Good evening, and welcome to our continuing series, Savitri. We are on Book 2, the Book of the Traveler of the Worlds, Canto 10, Kingdoms and Godheads of the Little Mind. And now that Alok is back from Australia, we welcome him. Namaste. And we begin on the fourth line, an inconclusive play is reason's toil.
So, one of the first things that the mother advises in that series of essays on education, the first thing she says, in fact, she uses the word, the first thing is to know that the mind cannot understand spiritual things. And this is a very important thing, because otherwise, if we try to understand only by the mind, in the beginning it is natural, because mind is our first natural instrument or the most developed at present, that we try to understand by the mind. But a time should come when this working of the mind as it today is, that's the rational analytical mind, we should qualify it, must be replaced increasingly by an inspiration, revelation, illumination, progressive intuition. That's how it should go. So we can start with analytical rational mind, but it doesn't lead to a true understanding or a deeper understanding. And the reasons which Shobindu is going to describe to us is one, because it's limited by the data it receives from the gross senses. It doesn't have access to the subtle data, the play of forces. And second, it acts on certain premises. So the premise can be that matter is the sole reality. So it's not open to other possibilities. For instance, when somebody starts seeing some beings, so tendency is we just label it as hallucination.
Mm-hmm.
It simply means it's a non-existent something. It doesn't exist which the person is seeing. But what if it is an experience of another order, another domain? So this is the problem with reason, and he takes us step by step. An inconclusive play is reason's toil. So if we try to understand by reason alone, it can take us this side and then that side. After seemingly that I have understood, we will see that doubt comes up again. And that famous letter of Sri Aurobindo where he says, I doubt if any number of pages, even 6,000 pages written on doubt, can ever, clear the doubt, because it's the nature of doubt to doubt. At the end of it, again, there will be some doubt. Each strong idea can use her as its tool. Accepting every brief, she pleads her case. So we have the famous materialist argument that there is no God, there is no reality, and as we were seeing last time, because the senses do not perceive. And now once you have this strong idea, or you want to prove it, you can keep on arguing on that basis and keep returning to that. But you can equally use another premise, and that based on that premise, that these senses are very limited. So you will open to other possibilities and other realities. So any strong idea can use it as its brief, and you can reason out this way or that way. Open to every thought she cannot know. And this is a very important, it has a very important practical connotation, because nowadays I see people on WhatsApp and all this, and today itself somebody was talking to me about what Osho has said, and sometimes people have a tendency to even post on wall. So at one time I had to literally say that if you go into the depths of it, you will be able to see the falsehood. You are finding it very nice because it's well clothed. Now this tendency in the name of openness, that okay, let me pick up from anywhere and everywhere, is likely to create a confusion rather than bring clarity. Yes. So because reasoning mind is open to anything, and what it doesn't realize is that through that it opens to the influence which is behind. So unwittingly it becomes a door, and then you open to not just that statement, but to the personality and the power and the force that is emanating through the person. So we should be very careful, and Sri Aurobindo is reminding us, though not in that context, but it applies. Open to every thought she cannot know, the eternal advocate seated as judge, armors in logic's invulnerable mail, 1,000 combatants for truth's veiled throne, and sets on a high horseback of argument to tilt forever with a worldly lance in a mock tournament where none can win. It's a wonderful image, that truth's throne. So each idea wants itself to be throned on that. But it's the throne of truth. So it wants to prove that my idea is true and all other ideas are follies. And it tries to, argue and plead and back and forth. And Sri Aurobindo is describing it as a fight where wordy lands. So they are fighting, but it's inconclusive because based on the premise.
And he so beautifully uses the legal terms.
Yes.
Throughout.
The horseback, high horseback of argument.
The eternal advocate.
Yes.
Pleading a case, a brief.
Essaying thoughts' values with her rigid tests. Balanced she sits on wide and empty air, aloof and pure in her impartial poise. So the images of reason sitting and trying to decide who is the winner in this argument.
Yeah.
And the tests are very rigid. Absolute her judgments seem, but none is sure. This rigid test is, in fact, today this thought came up of this while speaking on can destiny be changed. So there is something called as Arth prayer, a prayer that suddenly rises in a moment of acute crisis and brings an intervention. So sharing an example of how it can work, but at the same time it doesn't work always. Now, it is equally true that always we are not in that state which we cannot fabricate it. Can't say that okay, I'll try to look as if I'm in distress so that God may intervene. It has to arise from some deepest, inmost soul depths. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So that state cannot be fabricated. But rigid test is okay. If prayer has worked every time, it should work. And Sri Aurobindo gives a very nice letter where he says, of no power it can be said. And then he says, it is the nature of fire to burn, Agni Shakti. But in certain conditions, it does not burn. So it doesn't mean there is no such thing as the power to burn, Agni Shakti. So this tendency to apply a rigid test everywhere in every case, it doesn't work out, but that's how reason operates. Time cancels all her verdicts in appeal. This is how the life divine starts. Time cancels all her verdicts in appeal. He says that humanity, even after going through periods of skepticism and denial, returns back to her ancient primeval longings. The first formula of wisdom promises to be the last. God, light, freedom, immortality. And he says, now we see a humanity satiated but not satisfied. And it's seeking to return. So, ultimately, time cancels those verdicts. There have been phases in history when people or groups of humanity didn't believe that there is anything like a higher power. And it flourished for a while. But ultimately, a time comes when truth prevails. Although like sunbeams to our glow-warm mind, because it's the only light we have. So, that lamp appears to be the sunlight because it doesn't know what the effulgence is. Her knowledge feigns to fall from a clear heaven. Its rays are a lantern's lustres in the night. She throws a glittering robe on ignorance. So it's a robe of glitter. It looks like it is seeing, but it's like in a lantern when you look at something. So you see the surfaces and that too very imperfectly. But because some light is thrown, we feel that we know. But what has happened? Instead of a dark robe, now it's a glittering robe. We still do not know what is hiding inside. But now the times are changing and the age, it's a new age, it's an age of intuition. But now is lost her ancient sovereign claim. So he is almost pronouncing on a whole age. If you look at the age of reason, it started almost from Socrates and Plato, and the age of reason was largely worked out in Europe. So it goes right up to Voltaire and so on. Now we see, and during this period, during the age of reason, we see, uh, some of the great incarnations of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother themselves in that period. Now the Shakti is shifting, and so a more intuitive cycle is coming. So the energies which were on the ascendant are beginning to decline, and there is another kind of rising up because now it's a new age, and therefore we see the rise of Asia and India in particular. So here one line, but now is lost her ancient sovereign claim to rule mind's high realm in her absolute right. Bind thought with logic's forged infallible chain, or see truth nude in a bright abstract haze. So this is very interesting that when rationally we argue out about truth, we after a while we will reach a point where it will be so much of an abstraction that's clear to nobody except to the person who is arguing it. So when people sometimes say life divine is very difficult, I tell them that please read Shankaracharya's Vivek Chudamani. After that you read the life divine, you will find it is very easy. Because it's such an abstraction. Maybe I read at a very early age all this, but I found it so abstract, after a point, or Kant's. Read it, then you will say life divine, it's so easy and simple. It's strange, the whole argument it builds up. After a while, he has arrived at something, but what that something is, it's very nebulous. But it's very clear to the person who has arrived at that logical thing. And there are many loopholes which afterwards you can see it. The very data is imperfect. But at that point of time, you are stepping based on that.
And there are a lot of interviews on YouTube now with scientists.
Yes.
And they're all over the place.
Yes.
They don't have any idea.
Because they are beginning to realize, see, the rational understanding of science has led to a point where phenomena is appearing very irrational.
Yes, yes.
I mean, quantum world is an irrational world. How do you explain? So either you say there is a consciousness which is using it, which one doesn't want to admit. There was a very interesting movie, What the Beep Are We Doing? Where you see that scientifically you reach conclusions like there is one person who is simultaneously present in many places. Actually, if you understand the way time operates, you may well say that this is a famous thing, that supposing you could do time travel because theoretically you could make some kind of travel machine which travels greater than the speed of light. So what happens then? And what happens if you go back into the future? Because go far into the future. Now future is not unfolded. What if you go back into the past? Can you change it? Because you have gone back. So it's leading to strange conclusions which verge on mysticism. Yes. So people are very wary of stating it, and it's mind-boggling because this world is not built rationally. It's not built irrationally either. We know only these two alternatives. It's built intuitively, randomly. So we don't find that kind of logical links as human mind will presuppose. But there is another kind of logic which we cannot fathom. A master and slave of stark phenomena. So this is where the problem lies. So all reasoning starts with phenomenon, observation. But it's limited. So it becomes a slave of phenomena. She travels on the roads of erring sight, or looks upon a set mechanical world constructed for her by her instruments. So that's why it's so difficult to write, say, a biography of Sri Aurobindo. Now, if you take one point of view, Sri Aurobindo was in his room, and like the then government in India, would-be government in India, when Sri Aurobindo asked them to accept the Cripps proposal, they said, what does he know about the world? Let him continue his spiritual practices and not intervene. If you look from this point of view, Sri Aurobindo had foreseen what's going to happen in the whole Second World War, at least in some measure, was fought in the room that today we know as Sri Aurobindo's room.
Yes, and he said, my life has not been lived on the surface for men to see.
But who will report it? Because there is no way. There is no way that the senses can tell you. So that's where
He also said, there's not much time for Savitri now.
Yes.
During the war.
And when Cripps' proposal was not accepted, Sri Aurobindo said that it's going to lead to bloodshed, it's going to lead to... It's only later on, time cancels all the verdicts and appeal, all the wise men sitting out there who refused the seer vision. And I often recount it with a lot of pain, frankly, because of all the places in the world. In India, there was a group of people who refused the voice of the seer. A country where we have always honored. Okay, if a seer says, at least we give credence, we wait, we don't just rubbish it aside. But what a strange paradox.
Yes.
That, and by then, Sri Aurobindo had established himself as a seer, as a yogi, and they just refused outright, blindly. Gandhi.
Those were then were anglicized.
Yeah. A bullock yoked in the cart of proven fact. Matter is matter, proven fact. Matter is solid, proven fact. Until proved otherwise. And now it is proved otherwise. Now the question is, how is it solid? We face this paradox. So proven fact here is with a touch of irony. She drags huge knowledge bales through matter's dust, like a bullock cart, to reach utility's immense bazaar. So, reason has this question, what is the use of spiritual seeking? It has no meaning or no value as far as our everyday life is concerned. Not realizing even the most elementary spiritual practice, say of peace and equanimity, which is fundamental, like toddler state. This is what we are supposed to practice. And this practice, elementary practice, gives you immense advantage in practical life. I have seen for a full 1 year, I was just recounting calm, peace, equanimity. Just like a mantra it was going on. I met all kinds of accidents. One of them was being hit by a huge truck. My scooter was hit. And I am thrown. Scooter is thrown and I am thrown. And he is going on. Be a witness, don't react. Be a witness, don't react. So I get up and everything is peaceful. I pick up the scooter and everything is so wonderful. So this was a military truck and they stopped. They thought, oh, what has happened? And they are all, because I was in uniform. So they are all, worried. Sahab, kya ho gaya? And I said, don't worry, I am fine. I just started my scooter and went home. And I very nonchalantly, I remember that scene telling ki, I just met with an accident, everything is fine, scooter is fine, I am fine, gratitude to the grace. Now when I look back, in normal circumstances, I would not react like that. It's a big thing. So in most practical life, I won't call it a major yogic or any experience, but I'm just practicing this. And what a solid thing it can be. And Sri Aurobindo speaks about the solid peace that descends. So it gives a tremendous advantage. But when we try to look at it utility from a mere external point of view, apprentice she has grown to her old drudge. Unaided sense is her seeking's arbiter. This now she uses as the assayer's stone. So the senses will decide whether it is really useful or not, and reason will sit as the arbiter, using the senses as weighing scales. So even before trying anything, it just raises questions. No, first you prove to me Whether God exists or not, I don't see him, so he doesn't exist. Not realizing that you are missing something so important and so crucial even in your everyday life. I say this, that even the very first steps of spirituality are so liberating, and so one can understand what Sri Aurobindo writes in the essays on the Gita, and of course it's from the Gita itself. When Arjuna says this is very difficult practice, who is going to practice all this? So Sri Krishna says, Swalpamasya dharmasya. Even a little practice of this dharma, this knowledge, will liberate you from lot of fear.
The great fear.
Even this, a little practice, will liberate you from much fear, from the great fear. So just imagine, and we miss out on it. And now comes another interesting line. As if she knew not facts are husks of truth. The husk she keeps, the kernel throws aside. It reminds me of a story which I read few days back. The stories of Bilva Mangal. Today also I was recounting it. You may have heard about it. So he's Mangal. Mangal is he is a man. His father is a very devoted, pious man, and the son learns all the shastras, but when he grows up, he becomes wayward. He keeps running after this woman, that woman, and then there is a very beautiful woman, beautiful to his own eyes, and he falls in love, gets married, and he is so much madly in love that one night he wants to meet her, and the river is in spate, and nobody is willing to take him across. So he jumps into the river and catches hold of something. Actually, it's a dead body, but he thinks it's a raft. He can't see, it's a blinding storm. So he catches the dead body and reaches. The dead body is floating on the surface. Then he doesn't know how to climb because he has closed the door. She knows he won't come today. Every day he used to go and meet her. But this day, because his father has died and his last rites are performed, he had told her, I won't come. But then he's overcome. So he goes and then he sees a rope hanging, climbs by the rope. And then the lady sees him all foul-smelling, clothes torn, in this haggard state, and says, what is this? Are you mad? Are you crazy? No, I came this way. Then she sees that it's not a plank, it's a dead body and it's a snake he has caught and come up. He says, if you were mad after Krishna like this, he would reveal himself to you. Now the interesting point of the story is, look, what is the husk? Husk is his outer life. If you analyze his outer life, Bilva Mangal at that point turns into a devotee of the Lord. He is badly hurt. And that was the moment chosen by Lord Krishna to turn his life. And he became a great devotee. That's how he became Bilva Mangal rather than Mangal. Bilva is the Bil Patra which you offer to Shiva and Shiva is happy. So he became Bilva Mangal. He became famous as a Bhakta. Now if you look at his whole outer life, is a husk. People see this. What they must be talking about him, look at this man, he's running after women, he's lustful, this, that. But deep inside there was a kernel and a core, which nobody could see. But the Lord had his eyes on this aspect. He said, let it be ripe. One day I am going to throw away the husk and people will wonder who is this fellow who was hiding inside. So same way with everything, we look at the husk.
Similar story for Tulsidas.
Tulsidas. We don't look at the core. So facts when we speak of, we don't know what is going on inside. And it's true of human life, it's equally true of material existence, it's true of the whole creation. So it says that facts are husks of truth. And so many examples of that Mother and Sri Aurobindo have given. When she would watch the movie, I am told that Chandradipti was sitting by her side and there was the film on Mirabai. And this was on Mirabai was another incident where she said she could identify, but there was another movie which was being shown. I think it was Joan of Arc, and Mother said it didn't happen exactly like this. And she says this also, that she had gone to a place and they had depicted something from history. She said, but it didn't happen like that, and she actually spoke aloud. And the people there started staring that what is she saying? What does she know? Because that's another kind of revelation and experience. An ancient wisdom fades into the past. That is how a rational mind starts working. No, Ramayana cannot be true because how can monkeys speak? It doesn't even bother to think that maybe it's not about the monkey, but the monkey consciousness, which is symbolic. I mean, it's so simple. But, and I have seen intelligent people give such answers. Once such a question was asked on Quora. He said, "Oh, you really believe in all that? Monkeys actually speaking and all?" It doesn't take much to understand that it's not a monkey, but a monkey consciousness, a human who is like a monkey. It's like a humanoid, early human stage. The ages faith becomes an idle tale. God passes out of the awakened thought. An old discarded dream needed no more. So again, other day someone was asking about, did Krishna exist or Christ exist? So I asked this question that, well, historically whether they existed or not is one part. Tell me one thing, isn't Christ and Krishna the inner reality of millions of people? It's a psychological reality. So many draw strength, so many draw the source of succor and grow. Who are we to say that whether they existed or not? At least they exist as an inner reality. And ultimately everything draws its value from this, the value that our inner being gives to it. But purely from the angle of a rational analytical thought, only she seeks mechanic nature's keys. So God has no use. Tell me how to cure my fever by taking some medication. So it ultimately comes down to purely practical things. Someone had asked Sri Aurobindo, can you, let's have a pact together, someone from America. So I believe you are a yogi, so you tell me on which shares should I put my money, and I'll give you 75%, I'll keep 25%. Sri Aurobindo laughed. And Henry Ford had asked the mother, or not the mother, but he had given an open challenge, if somebody can prove to him the existence of the soul. And the disciple asked the mother, "Mother, here is our chance to win so much money." She laughed and said, "You cannot convince these people like that. Because unless he is ready to go through the process of experiencing it, rational argument, you can argue both ways. At the end of the day, well, I know it because I see it." So, interpreting stone laws inevitable, she digs into matter's heart, concealing soil, to unearth the processes of all things done. Ultimately, it falls back upon that matter. A loaded, huge, self-worked machine appears. So what does reason find when it digs into matter? It doesn't straight away find God. It finds a huge machine which is somehow working. How this machine has come into existence, who has set it there, it doesn't even raise that question. To her eyes, eager and admiring stare, an intricate and meaningless engineering of ordered, faithful and unfailing chance is a marvelous line. How he is combining contraries. Look at it. First he says that he is admiring the machinery. It's intricate, but it declares it is meaningless. Because it cannot know the meaning, it doesn't know the meaning. So it's amazing that something like a marvelous universe can arise out of nothing and has no purpose and no meaning. So that's where the reason stops. So it admires, it's an intricate design, but it's meaningless. Of ordered, faithful and unfailing chance. So either there has to be. So he uses the word again, there is a gentle touch of humor or satire in it. That it's all chance, but look at chance, that it's building up blocks of amino acid to build man. What a chance.
Ordered.
As if behind chance and fortuitous steps there is a logic working which we do not know. Only much later we get to know. So he is reminding us of that. There was this famous story of someone, a friend who comes to a person's house, if this friend is an atheist, and this man has made a very nice, like a model machine, and he says, who made it? He says, he just came into existence just like that. He says, no, how can it be? Someone must have made it. Don't play with me. He says, you believe that this small machine needs somebody to make it, but you believe that this immense, huge machine has come into existence just somehow. A very uncomfortable question. Whichever way you go, we may use the word consciousness. We don't have to have a scientist sitting with his lens and probe making this machine, but there is definitely a tremendous intelligence which operates in every element of creation. Ingenious and meticulous and minute, its brute, unconscious, accurate device unrolls an unerring march, maps a sure road. So again, he is reminding us, look at creation and will be filled with wonder. It is so minute, so precise, so detailed, so wonderful, intricate, everything. And you believe it's all unconscious. It's a fundamental difference between science and spirituality. Science starts its stand on this premise that nature is unconscious, jadvat, mechanical. And spirituality starts with the premise that it is conscious, but it has become unconscious in appearance. Behind it there is a consciousness. It plans without thinking, acts without a will. A million purposes serves with purpose none. Look at the human body. Why this nose? Well, its purpose is to breathe. What about the lungs? Its purpose is to absorb oxygen out of air. What about the blood? Its purpose is to circulate this oxygen into the cells. Everything has a purpose. What about the human being? He has no purpose. A million purposes serves with purpose none. At the end of it, no purpose. So, Sri Aurobindo is taking a wonderful dig at, and builds a rational world without a mind. There are books written on ants, behavior of ants, and how every action they do, if you really, there is a because. Why it does because? Why it does because? Animals store, polar bear stores fat. Why it does that? Because it knows winter is going to come, and it won't come out for food, and it stays. All this, everything, there is a because.
There's a very beautiful book by J. Henri Fabre,
Yes.
The Soul of the White Ant.
Yes.
An incredible book.
So it looks very rational. There is a rational of the ant in the ant world. But is the ant a rational creature? No, it is not a rational creature. Nature created irrationally. Out of irrational creation, you have rational creations. Everything follows a logic. Even in atom, there is a logic. So that's what he is reminding us. It has no mover, no maker, no idea. So, that's what science believes or reason concludes. That this immense machine, intricate, ingenious, detailed, precise, minute, but it has no maker, no mover. Automatically it's running. No idea. Its vast self-action toils without a cause. A lifeless energy irresistibly driven. Death's head on the body of necessity. Engenders life and fathers consciousness. This is the paradigm of rational science, because now there is a new science which is emerging, so we shouldn't put all science in that bracket. But science up till now, large body of science still tries to understand this way. So even now when it admits consciousness, it says it's an epiphenomena. It has happened by chance. Consciousness is a unique gift of man, as if everything below is unconscious. That's why Sir J.C. Bose's discovery that plants have consciousness is momentous. Sri Aurobindo wrote a whole article on that
Yes.
in the Arya. Yeah.
He's mentioned it even in the life divine.
Yes, it's a momentous discovery.
Yes.
Because it opens a new door. There is consciousness in plants. You go still further. There is consciousness in atoms. Now, actually, quantum world is about that. Electron makes choices. Depending on the observer, it changes. It's like it's playing a game.
But the cellular mind they haven't found.
Oh, that's a far cry. Then wonders why all was and whence it came. Our thoughts are parts of the immense machine. Our ponderings but a freak of matter's law. The mystic's lore was a fancy or a blind. Of soul or spirit we have now no need. So this I often ask, that if really speaking, thoughts are the mechanical products of activity in the neurons, then none of the thoughts have any validity at all, including the most rationally explained thought. Because the neurons are unconscious, they are babbling according to the paradigm of science. They're just babbling. You may say it has a meaning, it's up to you, but then nothing has a credence at all, because it's a neuronal babble. Neurons are just clicking, there is no logic, no reason to it, and thoughts are arising, which we call as that, consciousness. But actually, if this is true, then even the scientist's own logical understanding of creation and his theories have no real meaning, because they are the way the neurons are showing us and throwing up thoughts within our brains. So then there should be no discussion, no argument, no understanding, no books written, no PhD is given, no Harvard school or any school. Because then not only mystic's lore collapses, even the very paradigm of science collapses. So, matter is the admirable reality, the patent, unescapable miracle. This is the miracle, hydrogen gas. That's all. That hydrogen atom is the only thing God needed to create. Or maybe helium, who knows. But that's the end of the story. Yes. The rest is all spontaneous unfolding. The hard truth of things, simple, eternal, soul. Now comes a marvelous line. Is suicidal, rash expenditure. Creating the world by a mystery of self-loss, has poured its scattered works on empty space. It's energy. Ultimately, science can say that there is an energy. It's an open energy system. So what is energy doing? By losing itself, it precipitates and becomes matter. It's self-disintegrating. Suicidal. It has no meaning, no purpose, because it's losing itself when it becomes matter. Rash expenditure, because there is no purpose, no meaning, no direction in it. It's just happening. But there comes this final lines. Late shall the self-disintegrating force contract the immense expansion it has made. This is the ultimate theory, is that one day the universe will contract after reaching its ultimate limit. Though there is a catch to it. When we define space, we often define as the farthest limits between the stars. So where is it expanding into? This is a big question. Just to think about it and meditate upon it. There are some number of meditations which can be done purely on the scientific way of the universe, and they lead to profound changes. I used to think of this as a 15, 16-year-old. Where is the universe expanding into? When I had read about the universe expansion theory. Later on, I read much later, Mother says that this is one of the forms you can meditate upon it. Where is it expanding into? Where is space? Is there a limit to space independent of all these stars? That creates another problem. What are the boundaries of space? Because space is because of the play of forces. The stars, ultimately because of the laws of attraction and repulsion, you have space. Now, if you say there is independent space without the objects, then how is it created? And if you say there is no independent space, then where is it expanding into? It's, there are many such riddles of science. Then ends this mighty and unmeaning toil. The void is left bare, vacant as before. thus vindicated, created the grand
Crowned.
new thought,
Crown.
crowned, thus vindicated, crowned the grand new thought, explained the world and mastered all its laws, touched the dumb roots, woke veiled tremendous powers in the process. Dumb roots are roots of matter. And every time it dig deeper, it brought out powers, energies, tremendous energies and powers. It bound to service the unconscious jinns that sleep unused in matter's ignorant trance. All was precise, rigid, indubitable. Everything was explained, nothing more left to explain. A theory is a theory of everything, which doesn't need to bring in God or anybody else. But, and now comes the but when on matter's rock of ages based, a whole stood up firm and clear cut and safe, all staggered back into a sea of doubt. The solid scheme melted in endless flux. She had met the formless power inventor of forms. Suddenly, she stumbled upon things unseen. A lightning from the undiscovered truth startled her eyes with its perplexing glare and dug a gulf between the real and known till all her knowledge seemed an ignorance. This is exactly what happened 100 plus years back when there was the solid world of Newton's science and the quantum world came and it all staggered into doubt because the laws of Newton do not apply there. So it's a different world, and now of course we know where it has led humanity. So this was the momentous change. We'll read this passage again, but if I can recount a little funny story, this I can't help recounting this. It's my own creation. There is some truth in it, but the rest is an interpretation. So, Sita is kidnapped by Ravana. So, Sita is the ultimate power which has slept in matter. That's how she is Bhumija. She is born out of matter, but it's the ultimate power who's sleeping in matter. So, Ravana also wants, everybody wants that ultimate power. But of her own choice, she goes to Rama, which is the divine soul. So, he doesn't have to ask anything. He is capable. The bow is broken and she goes happily. But Ravana wants to wrest this power by force. Look at the symbol of the story. And Ravana holds. But even if he holds the power, unless he changes, he cannot really use it. It's dangerous power, because what she does ultimately, because Ravana is not ready, she calls upon the whole destruction of the race. Because she is a tremendous power, the original power. You can't hold it or capture it. It will bring your own destruction. Meanwhile, she has to be found. So, Sugriv calls all the monkeys and tells them, you guys go search for Sita. If you find her, come back. If you don't find her and come back, I am going to make sure that none of you will be alive. So, now comes the catch. What happened to the monkeys? One set of monkeys found her and came back and said, yes, we have met the original power. She is there. At least one of the monkeys who had gone, he declared, yes, such a power exists. There is Mata Janki and there is Lord Rama, and shouted, hail victory to the Lord. The other three monkeys, they went and never found anything because he was not there. They are still searching for that power. And they declared there is no original power and there is no God. Because the moment they admit it, they fear the risk of Sugriv, who is waiting with a sword. This last part is not there in the Ramayana, but this is my understanding of the story. Sita is the original power. That's why you see in India everything begins and ends with that, because Sita is found. But where Sita is not found, you are still finding, digging into matter. She is Bhumija. But you have to worship her and know her as the original power, the superconscient power which is hid in the inconscient. And when you do it, she will herself come. But when you try to force it and do it mechanically, you run the risk of blowing up the whole creation. So this is the story That will also come in the next passage.
Thank you, Alok.
Thank you.
Namaste.